There's no job like your first job. Find out how the brightest minds in HR, talent, and recruiting got their start. This is My First Job, hosted by Mike Wood, only on the Purple Acorn Network.
That's right, friends. This is only on the Purple Acorn Network. Greetings. Hello again. I'm Mike Wood. I'm your host, and I'm very excited today to be joined by Ariana Hillis, who is a first-time guest on the show. But Ariana, do you mind introducing yourself and telling us where you're from?
Absolutely. My name's Ariana Hillis. As Mike said, I'm located in the San Francisco Bay Area. If you're familiar, I'm actually in the East Bay, so about 30 minutes outside of San Francisco.
Oh, cool. I didn't tell you where I was from. I'm outside of Boston in the affordability zone, which is more towards the central Massachusetts area. But so I'd love to get started. We asked the same question to everybody to start. What was your first job?
My first job, I was 15 years old. I really wanted to get my license and buy myself a car. My parents made it very clear, like, if you want the responsibility of a car, you're going to have to buy it and you're going to have to pay for the gas and the insurance. So I was like, well,
Ouch.
yeah, I was like, okay, well, I need to get a job now and start saving for when I turn 16. So my high school actually had a program for high school students that wanted to get a summer job. So at 15, I applied and I was accepted. And they placed me at the Berkeley Chamber of Commerce as an administrative assistant. And it was 3 blocks from my high school. So I kept the job through the summer and into the school year. And I continued working Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 every day after school. I'd walk. And I think I was paid like $3.25 an hour or something.
The minimum. It was the minimum at the time that they could pay you.
That's where I was at. I was at like the minimum. And it was fun though. I got to answer phones. I got to set up the boardroom for a lot of entrepreneurs that got to come in and meet in this space. I put together mass mailers and got so many paper cuts, but it was really fun to be in an office setting. As a kid, I always played office and played real estate office specifically. So I got to live out some of my childhood dreams by stuffing all those envelopes and ordering supplies. It was a lot of fun.
Now, if I have 2 little girls and they're 9 and 5, and if I see them playing Office, I will slap the toys out of their hands and be like, "Go do something a lot more fun. Do not play Office." Um, so that's pretty strange that you love The Office. Do you still love The Office?
I do, and the funny thing is, you mentioned daughters. I have 2 daughters and a son, and one of my daughters like begs to come into my office and will steal my stapler and Post-it notes and pens, and she also plays Office too. So I don't know if it's
Maybe.
I passed it on. I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, she does the
All
same thing.
right. All right. So you got this nice work release program through school, which was great. What did you do next?
Yeah, so it was actually really nice. I was honored at a mayor's lunch, and I got an award for my work that summer. And but I wanted to get paid a little bit more because I felt like, gosh, this car is coming up, and so I ended up working at. Okay, so if you're listening to this, you can't see, but I'm very fair. I do not tan, but I worked at a tanning salon. I worked at a tanning salon, like one of the fairest people you could meet, and the pay was a little bit better. It was like $4.50 an hour, but I had the opportunity to earn commissions based on selling the tanning product lotions. And these things were not cheap. We're going back decades. And these tanning lotions were like $39.95, $40,
Wow.
up to $60 for like a little 8-ounce bottle of these tanning lotions, but I got a 10% commission. So I ended up making like $35 an hour because of how many lotions I was selling, and the owner of the salon
You're the
was.
lotion queen of San Francisco.
But it's so funny. It's like, here's this very fair-skinned person who could not tan other than a spray tan, which we didn't do at the time, and I was making really good money, so I was able to get my car.
That's fantastic. Did you try to tan at least?
I did.
Yeah, because you have like unlimited supply to tanning beds.
I was able to tan every day, and for a while I did, and then it didn't go so well. I'll just say that. So I stopped trying, and I just realized, you know what? I'm just gonna have some self-love and acceptance for what I've got going on here. I'm gonna stop
Yeah,
trying.
all the fair people I know in my life have just a constant burn.
Yeah. at this point. So now I've just, at that point, I just started using a lot of sunscreen and continue to do so. And I try and stay out of the sun.
Right. So you got your first kind of taste of sales or like earning some money for you based on your own actions. What did you do like next? Let's some more of your career journey.
Yeah. So I graduated high school. I got myself into college and I actually got my real estate license at 20. And I got into it because a friend of mine did as well, who was the same age. And he was like, it's a lot of fun. You can build some great relationships. And it just felt very adult like, right? To
Hmm.
be in a sales meeting with a bunch of people in their 40s and 50s and 60s and so on. And so I got my real estate license. And then shortly after that, my mom was like, you might want to move out. Like, I feel like some parents are like push you out of the nest and other ones are like, no, never leave. My mom was more of like, you should go out and get your first apartment. So I bought a house instead. So I bought my first house at 21.
Good for you.
Represented myself for the sale, which was fun.
Even
And then,
better.
what's that?
Even better. You don't.
Oh,
You saved you a ton of money.
it did. It was great. So that was my first taste of real estate, and then went on to get my broker's license. And then at 29, I was actually asked to manage one office for one of the largest Bay Area brokerage houses at the time, to take over an underperforming office. And I loved it. It was a really great experience. I was the top recruiter in the company for the 3 years that I was there. I grew the office and it was so much fun. And then I realized, you know what? I really want to have my own real estate company. So that's what I did. I started my own real estate and property management company. And that's really where my love for coaching and consulting kind of came in. I would help the agents in my office with their goals, balancing work and life. And I did that for several years and then exited the real estate and property management company that I had with two partners. And then I was like, all right, what's next? I have a very interesting
Yeah,
past.
lay it on.
After real estate, I decided to start two companies essentially at once. And we're going back to 2014. So one was coaching and consulting, which I still do today, but it's kind of taken a new form. And the other was to do a corporate event planning company. I just loved putting on events, and I was on some previous boards where I was always on like the event planning committee, and it just thought it was so fun to put these events on and see them come to life. Um, I also was employee number one at a startup in San Francisco in the employee rewards space. So I did that for a while. And then in 2020, I actually started an e-commerce business to just kind of have that kind of running, and I still have it kind of running in the background.
That's
But
great. Passive income. I have
yeah,
all these ads from people that say I should be making passive income.
do it. Yeah. It's a lot of fun, and I get to flex like the creative muscle through that venture. So that's a lot of fun.
Now, do you think you would have started as many companies and been a real entrepreneur if you didn't get exposed to that early on?
Mike, I think
You could just say no to just make me right.
no, I feel like it's just been in my blood. Like even when I was little, I was coming up with pretend companies, and I would I would make my parents pick from a menu that I would laminate of like a spa service. And then I would like run a bath for them and throw in bath salts and be like 25 cents for every scoop of bath salt that you want. And I put on a carnival for the local kids, and we had like the ring toss games, 25 cents a toss. So I've
It's a
always
good thing you're female because if you were a male kid doing this, that's serial killer territory.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. No, I feel like this. I've always just been destined to be creative and come up with different ideas and have different businesses.
All right, tell me about this business that's right on your profile. It's Shoshana's daughter. Tell me
Yeah.
how that started.
Oh goodness. Okay. So I mentioned my love for coaching and consulting, and it was very much coaching and consulting for entrepreneurs, for people that were in a sales role, had high achieving goals, KPIs they had to hit. And then once I became a mom, that's when it really shifted, because I saw that if you think about it, for any other aspect of your life, there's a lot of support. If you want to plan your financial future, end of life, you want to get in shape, there's even planning a wedding. There's like professionals that specialize in helping people through that planning process, that period of their life. And what I realized through my own lived experience is that becoming a parent, birthing or non-birthing, it's one of the biggest life transitions and career transitions that intersect. And there's not a lot of support out there. Sure, you could see a counselor, a therapist, there's life coaches in general, but what specifically is there out there to help employees or employers? And that's when I decided in 2024 to take the coaching and consulting that I've been doing at that point for moms and dads and have it as an employer offering, an employer benefit. And we focus on three main stages. One is the pre-leave planning, the logistics of handing off your work and helping to quarterback that process so the onus isn't on the expecting parent or the manager because they're busy, let's be real. And then also giving in leave support while that parent is on leave, supporting them from an emotional and mental health standpoint, and then reintegrating, re-onboarding them. And so it's really like a 6 to 12 month relationship that myself and the coaches, we're all retained parental leave certified coaches, help them through that transition while equipping managers and teams with the tools that they all need to navigate that transition as well.
Yeah, you're right. It is one of these kind of subsets of the population that isn't really talked about. So it's like my normal day job, I talk a lot about talent acquisition, and one of the things nobody tells you how to do is to do a resume. Nobody tells you how to do that. You have to look and find it out. And the same thing with like parents, like you don't want to talk to your parents too much because then you feel like everyone's going to judge you if you ask questions, right? And so like you just kind of figure it out, and anybody that has kids will just laugh and be like, yeah, we've figured it out. But if you didn't have to figure it out and you had someone there to lean on, that'd be even better, because there's a lot of problems that you can avoid, and just more anxiety that you can avoid.
A lot of anxiety, and I feel like it's not talked about. I feel like at least the stigma is somewhat being reduced associated with mood and anxiety disorders that come with welcoming a child into your life. About half of all mothers will experience some form of mood disorder or anxiety during pregnancy, but it doesn't really get checked out. And people who need help are usually the last ones to kind of raise a flag and say, I need the help. And then from a postpartum perspective, it's as high as 1 in 5 moms and 1 in 10 dads. So non-birthing parents can have it too, but it presents later, like 3 to 6 months after the baby arrives, and the symptoms are different. It could be, obsessing about finances. It could be aggression, being short-tempered. And so that can actually present itself in the workplace in a completely different way as well. And it can impact their performance and obviously engagement as well. So I feel like it's an area that, people in general should be aware of, but especially from an HR perspective, I think companies, should be paying attention. It's a small subset of the population, maybe 2 to 4% of any given employee population will experience a parental leave, but it makes a really big impact.
I feel like wherever I've been, people just constantly having kids left and right. Maybe it was just in the age range or whatever, but yeah, and I think reintegrating back into the workforce, reintegrating back into like, okay, I'm now juggling two things: the kid that's my entire world, your partner or whatever. So it's three things you're juggling them, and then now this job that wants you back, and finding you basically have to figure out work life balance on your own.
Yeah, and it's challenging to say the least. And that's why I feel like having a coach is so important, because they can ask you questions and help you think about things that you wouldn't even necessarily think about. An example would be for a new mom that's thinking about going back to work. Maybe there was a meal train when you first had your baby, but what about setting up a meal train for your first 3 weeks back at work? So you don't have to think about getting everyone fed, getting yourself taken care of. How are you going to do your hair and your makeup and your wardrobe? Like, is that changing? Do you still have as much time in the morning? If you're nursing, that adds a whole other layer of complexity. So there's a lot to think about. And, to have a coach that has templates and frameworks and can pose some thought provoking questions to you, it can really help you get set up for success and learn how to really navigate, the next chapter.
Now, I love that you're supporting the new mothers out there, and that's number one. You got to support the new mothers, but us dads, we kind of get left behind sometimes, and there's a lot where you just suffer in silence until you break.
Yep.
I remember, I think probably right around the 3 or 4 month mark when it was just crying nonstop and whatever. It's just everybody reaches their breaking point. They get everything is put on their shoulders until you just crumble. And so I love that you're helping out dads. Being a dad is something that I think people are talking more about nowadays, and being there for their kids instead of like most dads that we had growing up that were emotionally distant. But we'll leave that discussion for another day. But I do love that, and I love that people are just looking for some help, no matter what it is, and empathy. Like if I knew that my employer actually cared and wasn't just giving me the minimum required time off, that they're like, look, take a month or whatever. I think one of the companies I'd worked for just up theirs to a month for dads, and that alone is great because you can stagger it out, and you could be there to support your wife and the kid. And so I think that this is needed as there's less and less resources for parents, especially with the current childcare situation out there in the space. I think some of my listeners may remember me railing about the cost of childcare, but I think I spend probably 20 grand a year on childcare, and I have my last one is finishing this summer. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a huge raise. It's good. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I think they call it the preschool raise or
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but watch, like she'll need to like get something else that's 300 a week. Something like the law of averages will just average out. So, so you work with a lot of companies, and I love the work that you do. Is there anywhere that people can find out more information about you or your company online?
Absolutely. The website is shoshanasdaughter.com with two N's in Shoshana. That was my mother's name. And I'm also on LinkedIn. Ariana, also with two N's. Ariana Hillis with two L's. And yeah, would love to connect with anyone who wants to learn more.
Well, thank you for supporting everybody in the community. And I loved hearing about your first jobs. And thanks for joining the program. And you have a great rest of your week.
See you too.